Travis Miles is our final speaker of the day. Travis is our Director of Training and Development here at AERC. He is sort of new to us. How long have you been with us now, Travis?
5 months.
5 months, yeah, not even a year yet. And I'm really excited to hear what he has to say. You should have his handouts and slides to reference in your email. And again, you can type your questions in the chat and he will either review them at a suitable break or get to them at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and mute and let you take over. Okay, Travis?
Sounds good. Thank you, Heidi. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for the spring conference. And today we're going to be talking about compassion fatigue and how you can identify it within yourself and bring it to your team. Now, a couple of things with the compassion fatigue is the stuff that I talk about today might bring some up emotions within yourselves or remind you of certain instances throughout your life. So at any time, if you feel like you need to lower the audio or step away from your computer while I'm talking, please feel free to do so. Can you guys hear me okay? It looks like Rachel is having some sound stuff going on. Great, thank you for the responses. So in 1992, Carla Joynson coined the phrase compassion fatigue to describe the loss of ability for nurses to nurture. In 1995, Figley helped define the term by recognizing that as secondary stress disorder on care providers. So we're going to talk about compassion fatigue today. And compassion fatigue is an invisible wound. So here's a picture of my 2 daughters and myself at a good Gopher game, right, on a nice fall day. Well, as you can tell in the picture, there's no cast on the arm. There's no cast on this leg. But there can be a health issue going on within the mind that you can't see on the outside. Well, in 2004, I deployed as an aeromedical evacuation technician, and I was in Germany. And our mission was basically to fly from Germany downrange to Afghanistan, to Iraq, would load up our aircraft with patients that need to fly back to Germany for further care. And as an aeromedical evacuation technician, we would deploy about every 18 months for about 4 months, do our job overseas, come home, and go back to our vet clinics. After my first deployment in 2004, I got back, and back then there's no reintegration. It was just, thanks for doing your job. We'll see you next month for your drill. And I went back to the vet clinic I work at, and me and one of my friends were taking turns calling in appointments. And I'll never forget this one instance where my friend grabbed a chart for the next patient to be called into the room, and she looked at me. And she said, Travis, you haven't had to deal with death for 4 months. You're going to have to take this next appointment because it was a final care appointment. I remember feeling gut punched. Now, I did my job. I grabbed the chart from her. I called in the family. I helped the vet provide the final care for that patient. And I thought about my friend and why she would have done that to me, right? It's an invisible wound. She has no idea. Her perception was that I was in Germany eating schnitzel and doing castle tours all the time, right? What she didn't realize was this was my night off or my weekend to go do something. In reality, what she didn't know, because I didn't share it with people, was that I was doing massive patient movements with 30 to 40 patients per time, right? The middle picture there, that's the flight line. We have one vehicle bringing us bags that belong to our patients that we're going to transport. We got the ambulance backing up. There's a Black Hawk in the background, and that Black Hawk is carrying a patient that's basically going straight from a helicopter into our aircraft to get them back to Germany. As I mentioned, I deployed over and over again, and I kept bottling everything down, not thinking about it, just go from one job to another. Fortunately, the military got better at doing reintegration. And I was at this reintegration training, And they started talking about suicide prevention. And this patient jumped into my mind. This one patient, out of the hundreds of patients I moved, this one patient I could clearly see like he was sitting next to me. Right? And I started wondering, why I do my job? Do I have the ability to do my job? I thought I would recognize compaction fatigue, but obviously I didn't. Until all of a sudden I could take the time and start talking to people that understood compaction fatigue to find out I was having some fatigue. Now I'm here today to share this with you so that way you can learn what compaction fatigue is, and you can help identify it within yourself and within your teams. So that way we can get the care we need and keep doing our jobs that we love to do. So the objective for today is to define compaction fatigue. We're going to talk about how it is different from burnout, even though they're very close together. We're going to be able to look at the various groups within your clinics and look how it affects different groups. We're going to look at possible causes of compaction fatigue, the signs of compaction fatigue, and we want to be able to combat compaction fatigue. So we're going to look at the 4 R's that allow us to combat it. So the biggest thing we can do is start from scratch and look at what stress is. Now, you may have heard of the terms eustress and distress before. Eustress is a good stress, something that's stressful in a good way that amps you up and gets you ready. Distress is the bad stress, the stress that makes you worry, the stress that makes you concerned. Let's take running, for example. Some of you all might enjoy running and love that runner's high. Some of you may be like me, where I hate running. You tell me I got to run a mile, 2 miles for a fitness test, and I worry. I'm in distress. So let's see how we each respond to running. So we're going to do a chat attack. So in this chat attack, what I want you to do, don't press enter yet, but I want you to type in the chat, is running a eustress or a distress? So if it's good and you love it, type eustress. If you don't like running, write distress. And on a count of 3, I'm going to say enter, and we do a chat attack. So 1, 2, 3, hit enter. Let's do that chat attack. See a lot of distresses, some eustresses in there. Right, there's another eustress. See a lot of distresses. And neither. Thank you all. So now let's look at another option. Because we're all different. Stress is different for all of us, and what we stress about is different. Let's take a look at camping. Now, I love camping. If you gave me a tent right now and said, hey, Travis, go camping, we'll pick you up Monday morning, I'm going to love it. For some of you, there again, it's a eustress. For some of you, it's not. It's a distress. So we're going to do another chat attack. So go ahead, don't hit enter yet, but type eustress or distress for camping. And a count of 3, we'll do another chat attack. 1, 2, 3, hit enter. Let's see what you guys think. I saw major eustress and distresses in there. Right? Some of you that like running don't like camping. Vice versa, some of you like both or don't like either. Perfect, great, thank you all. So when we think about stress, one thing we don't always know is what someone is going through. And we'll talk about that more later as far as what are your team members going through that you don't know. How long have they been dealing with the stress? Just last week, I found a good, she's like my second mom, right? It's a good family member. Known her since I was about 10. I just found out last week she has cancer. Then I found out she's been dealing with this for 4 months. She just wasn't ready to share it with everybody else yet. Right? So when we know our team members are stressed because of something, we don't know how long they've been dealing with that. So we look at compassion fatigue. Figley and Rope did a study in 2004 looking at 200 clinics. And they broke the clinics into 3 groups. One group was the veterinarians, another was the vet techs and assistants, and the third was the front desk and the managers. They looked at compaction fatigue and they looked at burnouts. So what they found was that different groups are affected differently and have a higher risk of burnout or a higher risk of compaction fatigue. So when we look at burnouts, burnout is exhaustion from prolonged frustration, right? It could be something's not working, a piece of equipment's not working, a scope's not working, and you're not able to get it fixed, you're not able to get it replaced, but you still use the scope that's not working, causes stress. So when we have burnout, our stressors outweighs our satisfiers. I want to talk about that a little bit more later today too. The burnout is usually as a result from where one works rather than the nature of work. So that means if I'm working at Acme Veterinary Clinic and I have equipment failures and I have policies that keep changing and I'm getting stressed and I keep pushing it down and it keeps piling up and keep pushing it down time after time, and I leave Acme Vet Clinic and I go to a different vet clinic, well, that new vet clinic might not have all the same stressors, and I'm able to succeed and not be burnt out at the new clinic, where comparatively, I was burned out at the other vet clinic. So when Figley and Rope looked at the groups of burnouts, what they found out was when we look at high and extremely high, the front desk and managers are about 8.7% risk of that. The vet techs and the assistants are 7.8, and the vets are 6.3. Now, when we add moderate risk to it, we start jumping into 30%. So about a third of you have some risk factor of being burned out. The point here too is when we look at the percentages for compaction fatigue, sometimes when a team member says they're burned out, they're actually in a compassion fatigue point. And it might not be that they're burned out. It might be that they're suffering from compassion fatigue. And that's why we want to realize the two are a little bit different. And when we have that team member that says, I'm burned out, it could be a call for I'm compassion fatigued. So Figley defined compassion fatigue, saying it's a state of exhaustion and we have prolonged exposure to compassion, right? You think about everything we all do in our jobs, right? We're always giving compassion. We're caring for the pets. We're giving care to the owners to support them for their pets. Then we look further, Nihar added empathy to that. And what Nihar stated was with empathy, we're at a greater risk of compassion fatigue. Now, when we look at those three groups, veterinarians, front desk and managers, vet techs and assistants, I want to see who you all think has the highest risk of compassion fatigue. So if Heidi, if you can launch that poll.
Yep, just a sec.
So go ahead and select which group you think has the highest percentage of being high and extremely high risk for compaction fatigue. And Heidi, are you able to share those results?
Yep, just a sec. I'm going to give you guys 5 more seconds. So go ahead and get your answers in there, and then I'm going to end the poll and I'll share it with all of you. Still got some answers coming in.
Sounds good. All right, so I can see 42% of you said vet techs and assistants, followed by vets, and then front desk and managers. Great. Thank you, everybody, for putting in your opinions on that. And you guys are actually on the right track. So when we look at that Figley and Rope study, our vets are 30% high and extremely high. The front desk and managers are 33, so they're close. But you guys, our vet techs and our assistants, are at 42.2%. Now, when we add the moderately risk, we see an increase of about 10%. So those vets and the front desk managers are going up to 40%. All of you are going up to 50%, which means half of you are at risk of some type of compaction fatigue within your career. So that's why we want to look at the possible causes or what contributes to compaction fatigue. Just like any illness, it's not necessarily this one item or these two items, but pieces that go together, and we all have it differently. So the four main things that go into compaction fatigue is empathy, compassion, fatigue, and secondary trauma. So what is empathy? How do we define empathy? We have empathy when we share another person's experience or emotion, right? And like Nahar said, with compassion fatigue, when we put that empathy in it, we have a higher level of predisposed compassion fatigue. Now we can look at this because we have these mirror neurons that allow us to feel what other people are feeling. Think about a movie that you liked. If something happened in the scene where you start reacting with the reactions of the actors in the movie, right? Old Yeller, right? Or more recent one, when Tony Stark had his funeral, right? I started, well, I didn't cry, I got sand in the eye, right? But I had that emotion. These mirror neurons allow us to feel what others are feeling. A good simple way with mirror neurons, if I yawn, and now you're in there yawning, that's a mirror neuron having an effect on you. There's three types of empathy. There's cognitive, emotional, and compassionate empathy. Right? Cognitive is that perception of that sadness. When you have a client come in and they look sad and you start feeling sad and you feel sad for them, that's cognitive empathy. Emotional, what is emotional empathy? You're feeling what someone is, right? We have a patient come in and the veterinarian examines the patient and the vet's like, hey, we need to do a treatment plan. I need blood work, I need x-rays, I need an ultrasound. And all of a sudden this treatment plan is a couple of $1,000s. And you have to deliver the news to the client that for the treatment plan to get all the pieces of the puzzle the doctor needs, it's going to be $2,000. And you're sitting in that room and you're wondering, if the vet told me I needed to spend $2,000 on my own pet to do the care and to find out what is going on with my pet, could I afford it? I might not be able to afford it. That feeling, that's the same feeling the client has, is that emotional empathy. And then compassionate. This is that supporting someone, right? We all know we have these ideal or optimum treatment plans. And we've all been with clients that can't afford the optimum treatment plan. They can only do part of it. So we have that client that says, I can't do that entire treatment plan. Where should I start? Right? And of course, we talked to the vet to find out, hey, if the client can't afford the optimum treatment, what piece is the most important? And the veterinarian said, I need to first get the blood work. I need to check on those kidney values. That's the most important thing right now. And we tell the client, this blood work is the most important part of this whole treatment plan to get us started in the right direction. And the client says, all right, I want to start with the blood work. Let's start with that. And you can see it pains them because they can't do the optimum plan, but they want to start somewhere. When you're the one saying, that sounds like a good plan, I understand you want to start with the steps, so we'll bring your patient to the treatment area and start it. for the blood work and reiterating to the client that they're doing the right thing by making a starting point, that's the compassionate empathy. Now, another part is compassion. So with compassion, we want to help animals. We want to help clients with their animals. That's why we're here. That's why we got into this career field. Now, it's hard as clients with different views. Right? A good one for this is my own father-in-law, who I greatly love and appreciate. But now my father-in-law, he's a homegrown farm boy who horses are for plows, not for riding. Dogs are for protecting the land, not as a pet that's in your bedroom at night. Yeah. So he had a different view from care for dogs. And I'll never forget one of the dogs that they have got kicked in the head by a horse, right? So to him, it was let nature take its course, which is hard for us to hear because we know everything we can do. Now, luckily for Ace, his daughter married somebody who works in the vet field. And I'm like, all we have to do is x-rays and find out what's broken and remove those teeth, right? Now, he wasn't too thrilled about it, but luckily my mother-in-law agreed and we got those teeth pulled out and we're doing good. Right? Now, satisfiers and stressors. We have satisfiers and we have stressors. Part of this is when our satisfiers outweigh our stressors, is when we start getting into compaction fatigue. Now, one thing Figley and Rope found is that each group has different satisfiers and stressors. Good example here. When I worked the floor, for me, a stressor was nasty, nasty ears. I did not like cleaning ears. When that little dog comes in that has all the hair in the ears, and you have to get rid of that hair, and you have to clean those ears, provide medication, right? I knew the animal needed it, but it was a stressor to me. What was a satisfier to me was when those nails grow so long that they embed into the paw, and I'd have to cut that, flush it, clean it, cut the rest of the nails that are going too long. That to me was a satisfier. I felt great about doing it. So if I had more nail appointments and more ear appointments, I was good to go. If I had more ears than nails, now my stressor is starting to outweigh my satisfiers. So we're going to talk about front desk and managers first. And so what I want you all to think about is what are satisfiers for your front desk team and your managers. So go ahead in the chat and share what you think would be a satisfier to your front desk and your management team. Yeah, Angela, great. Grateful clients. Same, Stephanie, friendly clients. Yeah, Beth, greetingless clients. Yeah, Jennifer, puppies, right? For sure. And the kittens. Yeah, Cassandra, thank you from the team. Stephanie, yep, showing up on time, right? Yep, Don, helpful staff, and yeah, litter, puppies and kittens. So what Rope and Figley found when they did the study is they found that these items scored greater than 15%. So it was a thankful clients, like you mentioned. It was seeing the clients that appreciate the ability to get into the clinic. You all mentioned the puppies and the kittens, and it's that contact with the animals. It's the ability to feel like they're helping the animals, working as a team, and educating the clients. And depending on your facility, some of you might allow your client service representatives to educate more about flea and tick prevention. Some might want people to talk to a technician, right? But as long as they feel like they can educate the clients on something, even if it's, yes, you need to be seen by a vet today. Now, I was hoping to do this presentation without saying the word COVID, but let's talk about COVID a little bit and what that did. When we wound up going to curbside, right, and your clinic wound up curbside, clients were coming in and clients were seeing the client service representative. You all as vet techs may have been going out to the car to receive the patient and bring them directly to the treatment area. From the treatment area, you're bringing that patient back out to the car. The front staff is no longer seeing those pets. They're not getting to say hi to the cute puppy. They're not going to be able to pet the puppies, right? So that reduces their satisfiers. Now we look at stressors. And we all know the front desk and we all know the management has stressors in their life. So go ahead in the chat again and share what you would say is a stressor for this group. Yeah, Laura, rude, disrespectful clients. Yeah, canceling appointments because of staffing issues. Being overbooked. Yeah, not having the support of teammates. Right? A lot of dealing with the angry clients. You have late clients. Like you're not being confident in their triage ability. Short staff, right, Stephanie? Great, thank you, everybody. So in the study, what they found, like you all mentioned, was non-compliant clients. I remember talking to a client who was upset because of their bills, right? And disputes over fees. And what can happen too, and I'm sure you all had it, where one member of the family brings an animal and does everything they want to possibly do for that animal. And then you get the phone call from the other owner that's upset about the fee because they felt like they overpaid or wouldn't agree to the same stuff the initial person agreed to. Understaffed, if you haven't heard of it, currently we're going through what's called the Great Resignation, where a lot of people are trying new things they want to. And so companies, including veterinarians, are not able to keep the staff that they need and maintain the staff. Staff training, right? You guys mentioned the ability for CSRs to triage. Do they have the training to be able to do that? What can we do to help them on that end? You all mentioned the abusive clients, and here the problem with supervisors too. Problems with supervisors can be a result of supervisors being stressed. It can be a result of supervisors not being trained, right? There's actually training and an art to being a supervisor. And throughout my career within the veterinary industry, one thing I found is a lot of times we're like, hey, Jamie, Sam, Emmanuel, you've been doing this job for many years. We need a supervisor. Here you go, you're the new supervisor, congratulations. But do we give them the backup with a training on how to be a supervisor? The next group we're going to look at is those veterinarians. So here again in the chat, what do you think are veterinarians' satisfiers? Yes, Emily, diagnosing and healing the patient. Yes, Shelby, the client compliance. Yeah, puppies and kittens. Two of you got that one, right? That's Jacob, being able to pay the bills. A smooth flow of the day, good. Yeah, and happy staff. Knowledgeable support staff, good one, Rachel. Olivia, happy outcomes. DJ, for some, right? Not for all, that can be a bad thing too. Yeah, Maria, a gift from a client. Yes, Linda, staying on schedule for sure. Kindness, I like that, Angela. Great. So when we look at the study, what we find is healing those animals, right? The thankful clients, the working as a team, the using their skills, the contact with the animals, and educating clients. So again, here we need the stressor, the satisfiers to outweigh the stressors. Once again, you all as technicians might be taking the animal from the car and bringing them into the treatment area, working with the veterinarian, and now you're taking that animal from the treatment area and bringing them out to the vehicle. The veterinarian is losing some of that face-to-face contact with that client for that client to say, thank you for getting me in today. Thank you for taking care of Phoenix. Thank you for taking care of Cooper. Right? So we want to think about that. Now with these veterinarians, we also have their stressors. What do you think are your doctor's stressors? Yeah, Laura, running behind. Jamie, yeah, keeping on schedule. Abusive clients as well. Non-compliant clients. And Julie, short staff. Yeah, Olivia, the final care. Jordy, yes. Yeah, no wiggle room. You all are doing a great job thinking about the stressors that we all go through on every level of our organization. So when we look at their stressors, we find the non-compliant clients. I had a client one time that was like, I cannot handle medicating my pet twice a day. So if I have to give them one dose in the morning and one dose in the evening, that's the same as 2 doses in the morning. So I don't have to do it twice a day. I can just do double the dose in the morning and my pet's fine. The problem was the medication this client needed to use was insulin. And I had another one that was thyroid medicine, right? You have to do twice a day. Right. And the time, right? How am I going to fit all these patients in without overworking myself, without overworking my staff? Right? Poor staff performance. Is all my staff trained to the level I need them trained at? Have we identified what those levels are? Concerns of their own skill. Believe it or not, I've seen vets that are new. I've seen vets that are seasoned that question their own skills and reach out to other veterinarians to make sure they would do the same thing in the position they are. Problems with coworkers. Here again, throughout my career in the veterinary industry, we don't spend a lot of time on soft skills, something that we're starting to do and we need to do more of. But how do we resolve those conflicts when I have a conflict with a coworker? I had 2 vets I used to work with, and they had 2 different ideas on how to treat patients with different medications based on the same element. I had one vet that took in a patient, and the patient was going to be there for 3 days. Well, that vet that started with the patient wound up on vacation. So the second vet had to take over the case. The second vet changed the medications because they felt the animal would do better on the medications. The first vet came back from their vacation and was upset that the second vet had changed the medications, and they got into a fight about it. Right? So there's nothing about how to deal with interpersonal communications and skills, which we need to improve within our organizations. Now it's for you guys. Now I know you all have satisfiers as vet techs. So what are those satisfiers you all have? Yeah, do your job. Good work ethic. Good. Yep, some of you like those dirty ears. I do not like those dirty ears. Maria, the supportive staff. Puppies and kitties again. Yeah, Shelby, opportunity to use our skills. Getting out on time. Right? Cassandra, the angry cat wrangler. Yeah, Victoria, good. Feeling like I made a difference. Teaching coworkers. Yes. There you go, Jamie, the nail trims. Exactly. Yeah, keeping us busy. So what they found in the study was that our satisfiers as technicians are healing the animals, working as a team, getting those thankful clients, being able to use those skills. I've heard some organizations you don't get to do as much. Some organizations you get to do plenty, right? So it depends where you are. Contact with the animals, educating the clients, all stuff and all reasons why we got into the career field that you're all in. Stressors. Now you all have stressors and they're all different. So what are the stressors you face? Go ahead and share in the chat. Micromanaging, right, Laura? Overbooking. Good, Jacob. Yeah, the patient ripping out the catheter. Overwork, Adriana, yes. Those are the bites. And just if we're dealing with lazy team members, feeling like we're underpaid, overworked, bad managers, clients refusing to acknowledge the hard pets, right? The ones that don't need a muzzle, never bitten anybody. And Jennifer, clients only wanting the DVM and not willing to talk to the technician. So when we look at the study, what they found is the non-compliant clients again, they had problems with the coworkers. You're gonna, how do I deal with the coworkers that I'm having an issue with? Time, right? Double booking. The final care appointments. Very ill or high risk patients. Patients that we know have a high risk. Disputes with our supervisors and lack of trained staff. And here's one thing, if you notice that you're having a stressor at work with lack of trained staff, ask yourself, what are we doing at our organization to train our staff? How can we build our training program better so we do have the trained staff that we need? Time, what can we do differently so we can fit in those urgent cares throughout the day? So when we look at fatigue, that's the next part that plays into compassion fatigue. And you all mentioned it, being overworked, not having enough time in the day. When we look at an AVMA study, we see that appointments increased by 6.5% in 2021, right? A huge increase, more pets. One of my coworkers was telling me she just read an article that said over the last 2 years, there's like a 5,000 increase in veterinarians throughout the country, but a 5 million increase of pets. Inadequate sleep. We find that when people work 12-hour shifts versus an 8-hour shift, the people that work 12-hour shifts are only sleeping for an average of 5.5 hours versus an average 7 hours that an adult needs. Now, I want you all to think about, if I only have 5.5 hours of sleep versus 7 hours of sleep, how big of a risk is that for errors? So go ahead and put it in the chat. How many more times do you think that error is likely when somebody has inadequate sleep from a 12-hour shift? Is it 100%? Jacob 4 times? And with 5? Stephanie hit it right on the dot. 3 times more likely to have an error when you don't have enough sleep. Elizabeth is right. It's equivalent to being drunk. So think about that in your own organizations. Are we doing 12-hour shifts or are we doing 8-hour shifts? I'll talk a little bit more later why this is so important. It's the worry. If I'm worried, I might not be able to sleep. If I worry, I'm causing my body to be fatigued. Lack of exercise. I think y'all might think differently. I think we can count today as the first day of spring. I think it's been winter up until now. Little cold still, a little rainy, but I think we can call it spring finally. Right? And so if we've all been stuck inside with winter, we're not exercising as much as we should. Unless we have like a treadmill in our own place, or we have access to a gym where we can work out. Right? So we're not doing the exercise we normally would during the rest of the year. Secondary trauma can play into and be separate and part of compassion fatigue. Right? This is hearing other stories. We can be preoccupied them. But this is a CSR that was off today, but they come in tomorrow and they hear about the dog that came in with a penetration wound while they're hunting. So now that we talked about what can cause compassion fatigue, we want to look at the signs of compassion fatigue. Right? Just like any other health element, we're going to have signs and symptoms. And we need to know what these signs and symptoms are so we can identify them in ourselves and in our team members. So we're going to look at interpersonal signs. We're going to look at skills and what happens to them. And then of course, our physical, psychological, and behavioral signs of compassion fatigue. So when we go in here, we're going to have the interpersonal skills. Right? The home work life is not balanced anymore. Work is going to affect home. Because of that, we could have decreased intimacy. If we're having interpersonal skills, we're now avoiding our coworkers. Right now, some of us might be more introverted, some of us might be more extroverted. But now instead of taking lunch at 12 or 1, maybe I'm taking lunch at 11 or 2:30 because I know I can avoid my coworkers in the lunch area. I'm going to isolate myself from friends and family. And even some of us that might be more introverted are going to even isolate themselves even more when they're going through compassion fatigue. When we look at our skills, we're not going to have that attention to results. Our skills are going to be lacking because we're not paying attention to what our skills are. We're going to dread those certain clients. And you might have been there, you might know somebody where a client walks in and you or somebody you know that you work with just disappears, it's gone, right? Probably happened to most of us at some point in time. We're not making those decisions. We ask our lead tech, we ask the manager for a decision about something we need, and they don't get back to us with the answer, right? So we're not making those decisions that we need. So our skills go down. We start sweating a lot. We're under a lot of stress, so our heart rate goes up. We start having breathing issues. We have GI upset. Aches and pains that we didn't have before, we're now noticing. Our sleep balance is out of whack. We're not getting the sleep that we need. Psychologically, we're going through anxiety issues. We're having a lot of that. We're guilt. We feel like we can't do our job. Ups and downs. We're happy, we're not happy. We feel powerless. We feel like we can't help the animals. We feel like we can't help the client help their animals. And we question why we're in this career field. If I can't help the animals, why am I doing the job that I wanted to do before? Our behavior changes. We become irritable. Some of us might fall into substance abuse. You have access to drugs at the clinic. You have access to alcohol at home. People might have access to drugs somewhere else. Right? So we need to watch for substance abuse and signs of that. Our poor sleep. And once again, with behaviorals, that isolation, keeping away from other people. Now, when we look at compassion fatigue, Doug Fakama has 4 phases of compassion fatigue. These are going to be phase 1, which is save the road. Now, this is kind of what we go through while we go through our career. Right? Phase 1 is save the road. I'm a new grad out of tech school. I passed my national exam. I'm ready to save every pet. I'm ready to help every owner. I'm going to make a difference in this road. Along comes phase 2. It's the bubble burst. It's the why do I keep seeing the same client with the same dog with ear infections when we told them how to prevent it? We told them how to treat them, but they keep coming back with nastier and nastier ear infections. Right? It's that question of, am I able to save every animal? Why is somebody getting an animal when they can't take care of that animal? And then phase 3 is the anger. This anger is that I can't save every animal. This anger is that the clients aren't listening to us. This anger starts penetrating our home life. We might become road ragers. We might be yelling at somebody, one of our friends that we don't mean to, secluding ourselves from our friends and family. Right? That anger is built up. And then phase 4 is that reconnection. That reconnection that, yes, I understand within my career field, I have good times, I have bad times. I smile, I laugh, but I also cry. I can't save every animal, but I can do everything I can possibly try to do for the animals. Some clients aren't going to listen to me. More clients are going to listen. We're all in different phases in our career. And I can't tell you when one of these phases are going to hit you because we're all different. The only one I can say for sure is phase 1 is probably coming out tech school, right? Excited. I'm here to save every pet and do the real good. But I can't tell you how long that lasts. So I want you to do something. Now that we've talked about the signs of compassion fatigue, let's just take a scratch piece of paper, a notebook, draw 4 phases. The first phase is going to be in that top with the hearts. Phase 1, excited to go. Save the world, save all the animals. We're going to change the world. The other phase on the top is phase 2, this meh, right? Starting to see some issues. Why am I seeing the same client with the same issues when we already told them how to do stuff? Why are they still feeding regular dog food or this dog food on sale when they're supposed to be on a lamb diet? Below is the angry phase. The phase 3, the red one, anger penetrates everything. And then the 4th one below with the blue outline, the smile, that reconnection. Yes, I'm going to have good days. Yes, I'm going to have bad days. Yes, some days I get out of work on time. Yes, some days get done when they get done. It doesn't matter what time the clock says. So doodle the 4 of those somewhere, scratch piece of paper on a notebook, and go ahead and don't share it, but just mark it for yourself to say, this is where I am in my career. I'll give you a minute to do that. Yeah, and Don, I see that you had a question. You heard the majority of folks in vet med are introverts. So how can we tell if coworkers are avoiding you due to stress and introversion? That's the tricky one, because you're absolutely right. A lot of people in vet meds tend to be introverts. It's looking for those keys, like I mentioned, like if they go to lunch and they sit off in the corner so they don't have to make communication, or is it that they're going to lunch so early, there is a small chance that they're going to see somebody else at lunch, or so late, there's a small chance that they're going to see somebody there. You know, is it somebody that, you know, on the road today, we do a lot of text, right? Is it somebody who normally will respond with a small comment in a group text with coworkers, and now they're not doing any comments at all within those texts? So looking for those small little pieces. All right, so now that we talked about what phases we're in and where you may be, we're going to talk about how to combat compassion fatigue, because it's a real thing and we want to fight it. So when we fight compassion fatigue, we're going to look at the 4 R's, which is going to be recognize, reduce, restore, and repeat. If we can recognize it, we can reduce it. If we can reduce it, we can restore it, and we can keep doing this over and over again. Because compassion fatigue is not a one and done. It will always be there throughout our careers. To recognize it, we have to ID our triggers. What triggers me into it, right? For each of us, different. Satisfiers, stressors, right? Caseloads. Think about the caseloads. Is it finally spring, finally warm out? We're hitting more hit by cars, right? Is it the start of the new year? We're starting to see more animals that are coming in for euthanasias because to a family, they made it one more year and now it's time to do final care. We want to reflect our current state. There's a couple of tools that I want to teach you for reflecting where you are. The first one is a ProQOL, which was developed by Dr. Beth Hendel-Stam. It's a series of 30 questions, and you rank them 1 for never and 5 very often. So you simply go through this to rate yourself. I'm going to show you how I rate myself so you have an idea for this. So question 1, I am happy. I put very often. I'm normally a happy guy. And some of you on here know me and know me that I'm pretty happy, right? Right. Number 3, I get satisfaction from being able to help. Now this is people, so just put in animals. Yeah, 5, I thrive off of that. So I go through here, I answer my questions. I check the next ones, right? And you can see I can't recall important parts of my work with trauma victims, right? That one patient that popped up into my face, I can't remember everything we did, the whole story, right? 3. So once we grade ourselves using that 1 through 5 system, the next part of the ProQOL is going to have our compaction satisfaction scale. And what we're going to do here is just transpose those grades we gave ourselves. So question number 3, I'm going to put a 5. Question number 6, I'm going to put a 4, so on and so forth. I'm going to add them up. I'm a 45, so I'm going to rate myself high. We go to the next step, which is the burnout scale. Now, burnout, we're going to use some reverse scoring. So first we go through and we put in what we answered on those 30 questions. So for number 1, that was, I'm very happy. I put a 5. Now, what they find out is that when people are asked positive questions, they tend to answer those questions more honestly than if the question was framed in a negative question. So we use reverse scoring. So question 1 was a 5, but you see that little asterisk. It means I'm going to use reverse scoring. So I'm going to put in the reverse of 5, which is 1. 4 is right in the middle, so it's 3 and 3. But you'll see on questions 15 and 17, those were both 4s for me. So I'm going to reverse score those to 2. And 29 was a 5 again, so I'm going to reverse score that to a 1. Now I add this all up, and I get a result of 22. So my burnout level is low. But do know it's 22, so it's on the edge of low and moderate. Then we take our secondary traumatic score. No reverse scoring here, just transpose it. So question 2, I was 4, question 5, I was a 3, so on and so forth. My total is 24. So that's going to tell me that my secondary traumatic stress level currently today is a moderate. We're going to take this and then transpose it onto the last sheet of the ProQOL. And I can see my compaction satisfaction is high, so I'm doing good. My burnout is low, and my secondary trauma is moderate. Now, the good thing that all these paragraphs will say is, do I need to seek help? Like burnout, if your score is below 23, it reflects positive feelings. If it's above 41, I may wish to think about what at work makes me feel this way, right? So I can address it. Now, the ProQOL is a good tool, and I like it. The hard part is 30 questions, right? So what can I use differently that will give me a fast response and allow me to do it daily? I want to share something with you that I learned as a medic in the aircrafts. So here's a little lesson from aviation. So we call this operational risk management. What are the risks to working today? Am I safe to work? What the ORM looks like is it has a health and stress risk factor, and it has a fatigue risk factor. So when I look at my health and stress risk factor, I look at different categories. So I can see personal health factors, which includes hydration, nutrition, illness, and injury, personal family stress, work career stress, and perceived mission stress. Now you can see nothing has me answering like what it is about life that's making me stressed. It's just a simple, I'm low, I'm moderate, or I'm high. 0 points for low, 1 point for moderate, 2 for high risk. And then I look at my fatigue risk factors. Is it a 16+ hour? 2 days, 3 days, moderate, or greater than 4 days is going to be high. Combined prior sleep. Now I'm not just looking at last night because the last couple of days are affecting me. So I'm going to look at the past 3 days. Did I get more than 21 hours of sleep, or did I get less than 18 hours of sleep? Combined sleep the past 3 days. Did I sleep well or not? Was it tossing and turning? What was my sleep score for last night? And of course, because this is aviation, the net time zones. Now you might think, okay, what about vet field, right? Time zones don't matter. Mostly you're right. But how many people do you know that you work with who decided that they're going to fly back from a conference and work that night? Or they're in California at a conference and they're going to come back that night and work at 8 in the morning the next day. Why is this important? Why is ORM important to us in looking at these risk factors? I'm going to share you a story about a long mission I had. that covered just a little more than a week. So when I was in the Air National Guard, a group of us flew out to California to meet up with an aircraft and pick up our medical equipment. We had one night in California. We picked up some patients that had to go back into the Pacific Theater. So we flew from California to Hawaii. In Hawaii, we had one night in Hawaii, and then we picked up more patients that had to get back to their normal bases down in Guam. We had a night in Guam, and then we went back to Okinawa. We got those patients back to Okinawa, but that doesn't end the story there. After a night in Okinawa, we went back to Hawaii. Now in Hawaii, we had another night, and originally we were supposed to fly from Hawaii to California. Then we found out there's miscommunication with the contractors who were supposed to fly some patients from California to Arkansas for the military. So the Air Force said, well, we have a crew and we have a plane. So instead of flying straight to California, we passed California and flew to Arkansas with some patients. We got them handed off to the ground medics in Arkansas. We got sleep in Arkansas that night, and we had to fly back to California. We dropped off our equipment. We had one night in California, and then we flew back to Minnesota. Now, on the 9th day, I go to the vet clinic. Was I safe to go to the vet clinic? Maybe, maybe not. Now, I was used to the ORM in the military, but it didn't apply to my civilian life, but why not? So I went back to work, started working, did about half day, looked at the hospital administrator I lived with, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing myself any good. I'm not doing the clinic any good. It's probably not safe for me to be here. I need to go home. Luckily for me, the hospital administrator agreed with me, and I left for the rest of the day because I was not safe. I was not focused to be there. Now, this might sound a little crazy because of all the travel, crossing multiple time zones, including the international date line. So how does this apply to your clinic and the people you work with? Well, the people you work with are going through the same thing. They start at home, they go to college, or they bring their kids to school, they go to work, they do their job, they go get their kids or go to night school, then they go to social activities like sports. Then maybe there's another social activity, like I bring my girl to Dungeons and Dragons once a week, right? And then you go home, you do homework, and then you go back to home, you go back to bed, you get ready for the next day. And when I was reviewing this, my wife told me, hey, Travis, you forgot the laundry, you forgot cooking, you forgot picking up the house, right? So how much time do our team members have time to reflect? And what else are their stressors? They're going through college, they might be in a second job, there might be a birth and adoption, there might be a death, divorce, finance issues. So can we take this form and put it into the veterinarian industry? We can. Now, before you do this, I recommend you talk to your HR to make sure that you can do it. And like I said, that's not to identify exactly what the issue is. It's just to know, do I need somebody to watch my SIDS? I need somebody to watch my back, double check my medication that I'm going to give, double check my calculation of the medication, right? So if I look at this, the health stress risk factors, look at hydration, illness, family stress, work career stress. Let's look how I scored myself today, right? Hydration is good, nutrition's up, so I'm good there. Stress from family, elevated, just had a major main drain issue at the house. Work career stress, right? I'm in front of you guys today, a little stressful, enjoy it, but a little stressful. Perceived work stress. We just launched a major thing at work called Wasera. It took a lot of our time. It was a major stressful event. Elevated. So now I add these, right? 0 for low and then 3 for elevated. Anything higher than 3 puts me at a high risk. Then I look at my fatigue factors. When I look at my fatigue factors, low is 0, so I haven't had long days. Quality sleep, fair. Prior sleep, didn't sleep well last night. So I am at a 2 and excellent. Because when I sleep hard, right? So I'm a high. Now, this doesn't mean I get out of work. This doesn't mean I'm not responsible for doing my job and doing my job properly without errors, but it's an indication that I need somebody to watch my back. Like before one of my flights, one of my good friends found out from the Red Cross that her grandfather passed away. She was a high. Was she safe to fly? She said she wasn't. She needed to fly. We watched her 6. She did a great job. She was safe to fly, but we just had to make sure she was okay. That's what this is all about. So now that we do that, we can reduce. And for to reduce is to have diet, sleep, and exercise. Time for ourselves, right? Nourish ourselves. Self-care. I got a chance to listen to Kelly Cardenas talk. He's a great motivational speaker. And one thing he mentioned was that balance of work-life, right? And I have a water bottle here, and people think balancing is this. You can see the water is moving back and forth. It's not balanced. Work is interfering with home life. Home life is interfering with work. Think about it this way. If this is when I'm at home, everything is at home. Work is not interfering with it. When I go to work, the water settles again. Be at home, be at work. Set those boundaries. We need to self-care for ourselves. We need time for ourselves. We need diet. What is time for ourselves? Some of us like to read. Some of us like to get out into the woods. And repeat. We're going to go through this over and over again. We're going to recognize where we are. If we're getting into compaction fatigue, we're going to take the steps to reduce it. And we're going to restore ourselves. And then we're going to repeat it. When we debrief, we want to be self-aware. We want to think about the feelings that we're sharing. We want to think about how others are going to feel when we share. We want to give fair warnings. Ask permission. Can I share this with you? We want to prep them. That patient that jumped back into my mind, I need to talk to somebody about it. I went to my best friend who I've known us since I was 5. I'm like, Ben, I got to talk to you about something. But it's kind of going to be hard, and it's going to be hard to hear. And he said, I'm here for you, man. So I was able to talk to you about that. Time. We can't rush these things. When we know it's going to be something hard, we need to allow time for it. If I have a team member come up to me and say, Travis, I need to talk with you, I'll say, let's schedule it so we have time to talk about it. And I'll leave myself open for the next 15 minutes after that meeting so I got time to stay with them and not rush them out of my office because I have another meeting to get to. Right? Prevent vicarious trauma by sharing too much. So think about what you want to share and how you can share it. How can organizations help? Well, adequate pay and PTO. So that way people can afford to take the vacation and not think they have to save all their PTO for sick time. It benefits, training, setting policies. So that way there's not a question on what is the right way of doing something. It's set what the policy is. Employee assistance program, which is usually part of your insurance plan, but making sure everyone's aware that the EIP program is there for them and how to access it. Websites. One of the things I saw really good was the University of Washington has a website for their employees. And in that website, it has Dare to Care, which is a website that their employees can go to and find information on compassion fatigue. So if it's 11 at night, 3 in the morning, and HR is not there, they can find information on where to go to get help. Another thing University of Washington does is called the Box Project. What I love about the Box Project is these simple boxes that are stationed throughout their entire area. And team members can write notes, they can write poems, song lyrics, drawings, they can put their name on it, they can leave it anonymous. But if they need to get something off their mind or off their chest, they can write it down and they can put it in the box. That's all it is, simple. But people can help express themselves through the Box Project. What do we need to do as organizational leaders? Know the team, right? Some team members will share a lot about what they have going on in their home life. Some people won't. But just knowing a little about them will help build that trust and build that relationship. Knowing your guidebook, so when they ask a question, you can point them to the right spot in the guidebook. Know about the EAP program so you can refer them to that. Family Medical Leave Act. Going back to the operational risk management, what I like about that is if I see somebody is high constantly, To me, that triggers as a leader, this person might be eligible for family medical leave. And I need to let that person know what they should do in order to request family medical leave paperwork so they can get that to their doctor. The big key and the big takeaway is ask, how are you doing today? Right? Don't hide in your offices if you're a leader, if you're a manager, but ask, how are you doing? One trick I use all the time is I say, how are you today? And if I say, how are you today? And they say, okay. I say, only okay? Inquisitively. Then if they just say, yep, I'm okay, I leave it at that. What I found when I ask, only okay, sometimes I start getting a little more information that lets me know that one of my team members is struggling. And then I can point them in the right direction or help them as appropriate. So ask your team members, how are you today? And look for good, okay, right? Or if they're struggling, help them get to where they need to be. So today we talked about the definition of compassion fatigue, the difference between burnout and compassion fatigue, what can cause compassion fatigue, and the signs of compassion fatigue, along with how are we going to combat compassion fatigue. They're all important, they're all pieces. It's just like any other health issue that we as technicians work on, right? We have to know what it is to combat it and then combat it to resolve it. So I'm open to any questions that you may have. And this is a fun little picture here. This is one of my patients. We actually got to do some evacuation of military working dogs too. So that was really fun. Well, what questions? You can type them in the chat too. Thank you, Jamie. You're welcome. Yeah, if you Google ProQOL, you can find all the information you need. And I'll share my resources here. And that first one is at ProQOL.